Welcome back to Movies TV Mad and Tuesday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And do I have a bit of an exclusive for you on today's Movies TV Mad Daily? I have heard on a very reliable grapevine that Warner Discovery, David Zaslav wants Kevin Feige to be the DC Films president from mid-2022 next year. Now, of course, DC fans, DCEU fans have got some very kind of varied opinions about Kevin Feige. Some people see him as the devil himself. Some people see him as the Lord Jesus. I see him as a very clever producer. There's no question about that. But how would this even work? We have to say first and foremost that Walter Hamada has steadied the DC film ship. There is no question about that, whatever side of the pudding you come from. Because after Justice League, we had a calamity on our hands. He came in, he steadied the Aquaman ship, led that movie to make over $1 billion globally. Aquaman is a fantastic CBM, no question about that. Shazam, a very popular film that made solid box office. Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 84 were very middling movies, but they made some money for the studio. And so he has steadied the ship, and now him and Greg Berlanti have kind of, since 2018, been developing this multiverse strategy. Now, I am told that he would not totally replace Walter Hamada, but work alongside Walter Hamada. Maybe he would be his understudy. Kevin Feige would be the boss. Now, some people would doubt what I'm saying, but let's look at this. For the past few years, WB have been amassing MCU talent. Taika Waititi is doing his own project on HBO. Robert Downey Jr. is doing his own project on HBO. And James Gunn is now with the DCEU. After Guardians 3, he will return and he will carry on doing stuff. His first DCEU film is coming out in about 2 weeks' time. His Suicide Squad movie has been well received by the media. Surprise, surprise, no shit Sherlock. So they've been amassing MCU talent for the past few years. Maybe this was the plan all along. How do I feel about this? I don't know what to think anymore, because one thing we can say under Zack Snyder, that the DC Films universe had its own identity. A gritty, raw, stunning visual quality. I like Snyder's movies. The problem with his movies was that they weren't making enough money, and there was this divisive toxicity towards them. Now, commercially and marketing wise, this couldn't be allowed to stand. That's obvious. So he was removed. We know he was brought back to do his Snyder Cut, which basically gives him and his fans justice for what happened with Joss Whedon and Kevin Sugihara and all those people. So we know that Zack Snyder's Justice League universe could have been restored if Zack Snyder and people like Ray Fisher had behaved themselves. They didn't. They decided they didn't want to restore the Snyderverse. They opted, they opted for revenge instead, which is very sad because all the fans are still fighting. Now, of course, we've had this very uncomfortable, unmoral situation of the motion comic as well with Lightcast. A very uncomfortable situation. By the way, I would say to Lightcast, if you're as innocent and if you want to play the victim as you are, why don't you donate everything you would have made with the DC motion comic, the Justice League 2 motion comic? Why don't you donate all that money to suicide prevention? Bet you won't. Bet you won't. Bet you can afford it. Bet you won't. Anyway, let's get back to the subject at hand. So, I really don't know anymore. Look, what would Kevin Feige do with DC? Well, it's very, as I say, I don't know when his contract runs out. There could be a situation where WB buy him out of that contract. Let me tell you something about David Zaslav of Discovery. He wants to make money. That's all he cares about. He's not going to come in and, you know, make big statements about equality and things like that and representation and inclusion. He's not going to do that. David Zaslav will put the right people in the right place. Now, someone tried to be a smart ass a couple of months ago and say he won't be running WB, he's the CEO. And this person's always been clever, you know, there'll be department heads. We know that. That's how business is run, by the way. But who runs those departments is up to Zaslav himself. And he wants to make the most money possible. And of course, Kevin Feige would be a target of anyone because he has created the MCU and it has made as much money, more money, than any film franchise has ever done. Very successful. The hunger and appetite for it is still there. So anyone would want Feige to run a franchise. Would he improve the DC Extended Universe? It's interesting. It really is. If you look at the way he's run the MCU, we know that Feige has to run the MCU under the Disney umbrella, which means family movies. Now, he wouldn't have to be under the umbrella at DC, so he could do so many more things. He could do the DC Black Label that Todd Phillips wanted to do. There's so many different things he could do with DC. Would he make it a success for the company? Yes. But is Kevin Feige what DC fans want? Now, we also know something else. He has a very close relationship with Geoff Johns, which makes a lot of Snyder fans very, very uncomfortable. Do I believe what I'm being told? Yes, I believe that Kevin Feige ultimately will run the DC film universe. I've always believed that. I've believed it for some years because of what I've already told you, that a lot of MCU talent is coming over to this company. Is it an accident? Listen, Kevin Feige is on the same page as James Gunn. In terms of James Gunn's firing, you know, Kevin Feige was not happy about that. He was partly the reason that Gunn got his job back. But don't think that Feige and Gunn are impressed with Disney since that incident. And I think there has been a plan behind the scenes for him to get as much of his talent over at WB. Now, this is something you're going to be surprised to hear. But Kevin Feige is in fact a very big DC fan. Nobody knows more about DC comic books than Kevin Feige. He started off his career like Geoff Johns. That's how they met, working with Richard Donner. That's why he's always been very complimentary of Superman the movie. In fact, he styled the MCU in the atmosphere and environment and the kind of tone of Superman the movie. He's done that. He says every time before they make a movie or start a project, him and his teams watch Superman the movie. He loves it. Now, I think that Kevin Feige is a very clever man. There's no question about that. Of course, I go in on him at times because he works for the opposition, so that's only natural. I'm a DC fan. You know, DC films have struggled. Whether we like the films or not, they have struggled to kind of appeal to the broader audience, and broader audience is where the money is. This is what the problem with Snyder was. The broader audience hated Snyder and his DC movies. I'll repeat again for the pie eaters right in the back row. I love Snyder's work, but for a business, he's no good. He doesn't listen to his bosses, to the holders of the IP, and that's no good. He's in the best place for him in his career over at Netflix. I congratulate him and I wish him all the best for the future. I'm very excited about Rebel Moon as well. I think that will be a great project. But things are changing over at DC. And as I say, I believe this plan has been there for quite a while. I think ever since Walter Hamada took over. I always believed that Hamada was a stopback. Sorry, say that again. I always believed that Walter Hamada was a stopgap appointment as president of DC Films. I always felt that by the end of 2022, his current contract will run out. In fact, it all makes perfect sense. So do I believe that Kevin Feige will be the president of DC Films by the end of 2022? Yes, I do. I even feel the way he's running the MCU now, it kind of gives you a clue to that. Some mistakes are being made with that. I don't think he's fully into it anymore. That's my opinion. I know that will get me a lot of hate. So, at the end of the day, do I think this is a good thing? Do I think this is a bad thing? I do not think this is a bad thing. I know a lot of you will. Kevin Feige can create a DC film universe with different departments. As I say, a DC Black Label. He will do everything to make sure this IP makes the most money possible, but he also wants to cater to the fandoms. He also wants to, and to cater to fandoms means making money, you know. So I do think this is a good thing for the business. Now, there is an element of uncomfortability for me because we're taking someone who was somewhere else and we're not bringing in our own creatives and being successful with them. But here's the thing. People have been arguing that the DCEU needs its own Kevin Feige. Well, let me tell you a secret that's not much of a secret. There's only one Kevin Feige, there's only one Tiger Woods, there's only one Sir Alex Ferguson. These people are pioneers. And being at WB in DC will be very different for Kevin because he will have the freedom to appeal to lots of different demographic minorities, age groups, men, women, and he can do that. There's a lot more potential over at DC with the right person in charge. Now, the multiverse strategy is a great idea because you can give everyone everything they want. So this was a great idea, whoever came up with it. And this is happening. Now, David Zaslav and Discovery have been spoken about ever since it was announced that they will take over WB. And it will now be Warner Discovery. Warner was always going to be the first name there, even though it's going to be pretty much owned by Discovery, because Warner Brothers, you will never delete the name Warner Brothers. It's so famous. You know, HBO Max should have had Warner Brothers in the title. A lot of people don't even know that the HBO Max streaming service has anything to do with WB. They've lost a lot of revenue because of that. And I expect the name of that streaming platform to change as well. Listen, Zaslav and Discovery didn't just buy this huge, iconic, over 100-year-old studio for no reason. They bought it because of the potential of making money. And DC is the biggest potential they have. They have a lot of potential at the studio. Excuse me. This frog in my throat won't leak out and it's annoying, morning throat. But, so to kind of summarise what I've told you, I've heard on my grapevine, a very reliable grapevine that has really nice juicy grapes that taste really nice, that never lets me down, that David Zaslav and Discovery want to appoint Kevin Feige as president of DC Films. This is a situation that won't see Walter Hamada leave, but work alongside Kevin Feige. Also, I'm hearing that Greg Berlanti could be involved in this team as well, so that's 3 great producers, whatever you think of them. They've got great history within the industry. This would be a super team. So I do believe this will happen by the end of next year. I do believe this is the future, and I do believe DC will be all the better for it. But the current plan has got a lot of potential. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, the other 4 movies, the Batman, has huge anticipation towards it. We have DC fandom that would be perfect for Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige is perfect for any franchise, for any studio, because he talks a lot. He's always out there talking about the MCU. We don't have anyone representing DC films or DC TV shows going out there talking like Feige does. He's the type of person that we need, whether we like it or not. Now, obviously, Disney would do everything in their power for this not to happen. What is the MCU without Kevin Feige? Who runs it instead? I have no idea where they go from here. It's a big thing. This would be the biggest thing in the entertainment industry, and people will be talking about it. It would break the internet. I believe this is a good thing. I think this will happen, and I'd love to know what you think about it in the comments down below. Because like it or not, there is no one like Kevin Feige. J.J. Abrams can't be your Kevin Feige. There's nobody out there who can do this, because if there was someone out there, with the personality and ability to do this, well, they would have brought them in. And as I say, Walter Hamada has steadied the ship financially, because there wouldn't be a DCEU right now surviving and making films if it wasn't for Walter Hamada. But Kevin Feige is a one-off, and if there's a possibility to get him, we should get him. And I know a lot of people are going to be upset about this, but at the end of the day, if we can have the DC platform up there performing at the highest level, making films of the highest quality, you know, we know that Feige would, you want Superman front and centre, and Batman and Wonder Woman, but developing these smaller characters like he's done with Ant-Man and the Guardians as well. So he can give you everything you've ever wanted. He is the dream ticket, whether you like him or not. Snyder is not the dream ticket, not for a hardcore DC fan. We've been screaming for years that these DC characters and these books are screaming for someone to represent them in the right way. There's been so many hit and misses. Kevin Feige would be perfect for this. Right, the only real update from yesterday is that Justin Kroll of Deadline has broke the story that there are 4 actresses in line to play Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, in the HBO Max Batgirl movie. Batgirl talent lines up to test for Barbara Gordon role. Exclusive. Even though audiences won't see Robert Pattinson in the Batman for another 8 months, Warner Brothers and DC Films are putting the wheel in motion on its next big superhero. Sources tell Deadline execs are expecting to test a group of actresses starting this week for the highly coveted title role of Batgirl. Although test details still are being locked up and some already have passed, the talent expected to test for the role includes Isabella McCreed, Zoe Deutsch and Leslie Grace. We also have heard Haley Lou Richardson's name, but she might have bowed out before the test process. The studio had no comment on the testing process. The film will bow on HBO Max, making one of the first major DC properties to bow exclusively on the streamer. Adil El-Arabi and Bilal Fala will direct the pick from a script by Christina Hodgson. Christine Burr is producing. While plot details are under wraps, it is known that Barbara Gordon, the daughter of Commissioner Gordon, will be the character behind the cape in this version. Gordon is the most established version of Batgirl. Character was first introduced in 1961 as Betty Kane. So that's your scoop from Justin Kroll. Of course, Justin Kroll comes out with a lot of scoops. Mostly he's right. I don't believe he's right about this. Why not? I don't think they're going to cast a white actor for Barbara Gordon. We know how we swing now with castings and, you know, representation and inclusion, or so they'd like us to think. Normally, it's people with the Hollywood DNA rather than someone who's just walked in. So it's not genuine inclusion and representation. We all know that by now. But I do believe they are looking for a Latino actress to play Barbara Gordon. That's what I've been told, and it makes perfect sense if you look and think about the environment we're in today. So I don't expect, and I don't know if these actresses are actually Latino at all. I'm not sure. I think the one in the middle there. So these are the pictures of the actors. So are they all Latino? I'm not sure. I wouldn't like to say. I think I think there may be 2 or 3 Latino actors there actually. So if there is a Latino actress there, one of them will get it. I don't expect a proper white American woman to get this. And, you know, that's not me being controversial. That's me just being genuinely honest from what I've been told. So do expect a Latino actor to be cast as Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl. I'm very excited for this HBO Max project. Barbara Gordon, I'm surprised we've never had a live action version. Oh, didn't Alicia Silverstone play a Barbara Gordon? I think she did, yeah. Not a very good version. So hopefully it's really good. Now, of course, Christina Hodgson keeps on writing everything. She did The Flash, she did Birds of Prey. She's Walter Hamada's #1 scribe. One of the things, if Kevin Feige does come in, is to get rid of this woman, because I have no faith in her whatsoever. Now, if she has written an excellent Flash movie, and we'll have to wait and see, of course I will change my tune. But at this moment in time, she's been rather problematic. Now, according to Andy Muschietti, she's wrote a great, funny, exciting, dramatic, emotional script. We will have to wait and see. So I won't say, oh, she's crap. I will say that I'm dubious about Christina Hodson, and we'll have to see what she's done with this movie. I think if you're honest, and I think if anyone from the industry is watching this video, which I very much doubt, I don't think Christina Hodson would be your first port of call in developing and writing superhero movies or TV shows. She certainly wouldn't be for me. But as I say, she's Walter Hamada's #1. Basically, that's who he trusts and likes to write these things. I'm surprised she's doing The Flash. I'd be very surprised if she knows very much about the Flash character or the comic books, but who knows? She might be very involved in comic books, and she may have a lot of knowledge. This could be a mistake, but who knows? We're going to have to give her a chance and see what happens. So yes, I expect a Latino actor to be cast in the role of Barbara Gordon, and I'm very, very excited for all these upcoming projects, because at least we've got projects to look forward to. Under Snyder and the previous WB leadership, things were, we were getting slates that never happened. Now, under Walter Hamada, projects are happening. That's one thing you should say about Hamada. He sets up the talent, he gets it sorted, and we are getting these projects. It was Walter Hamada who convinced Matt Reeves not to quit the Batman when there were issues. The issue was that the studio wanted Ben Affleck to play Batman in Matt Reeves' The Batman. They wanted it to be the movie that Ben had planned. So think about that, Snyder fans who hate on WB. The old leadership actually wanted Ben to remain, but Matt Reeves, understandably, wanted to cast his own actor, and I have no issue with Matt Reeves over this. Everyone wants to employ their own people. Otherwise, it is your name on the director's chair, and if the film goes wrong, you're going to get the fucking blame, aren't you? So at least if you bring your own people in, you can totally take responsibility for the picture. So I think that's very, very important. But yeah, I do feel that Walter Hamada has done a very good, fine job as DC president. You people can comment down below and tell me if you disagree or agree on that. There's no question about it. With Zaslav and Discovery in the mix, and he's already made his intentions perfectly clear that he wants to see Superman and Batman everywhere. That basically tells you he wants everything that makes them money. So, how does he do this? Is Zaslav going to change the face of WB and the way DC is made? Look, if he's bringing Kevin Feige in, I think that tells you his intentions. It tells you that this guy wants to make top dollar, and the way you make top dollar in this industry is have the best department heads, have the best people involved in WB and DC, and Kevin Feige is the best people. His results speak for themselves. And, it's not just the MCU he's been involved in. He was involved in Singer's X-Men. He was involved in Raimi's Spider-Man. He's been involved from the very beginning, producing, being an associate producer. He has been there. He's the one who brought Singer into X-Men. His genius goes far beyond the MCU. Now, whether you like the MCU or you don't like the MCU, he's a talented man. And as I said before, there's no one like him in the industry who can do this, who can grab hold of a troubled franchise and turn it around. For Snyder fans, it's all about Snyder. Bring him back. It'll be fine. It won't be fine. It'll be fine for you, but it won't be fine for everybody else who doesn't like what happened there. We have to have someone who can get people to make the best films, to have a cohesive, connective tissue, but also have some standalone films as well. There's so many wonderful IPs in DC. I've been talking about Green Lantern a lot on my channel in the past few weeks, because I think, as I've said before, that is Star Wars in outer space, and I think James Gunn could really do great things with a Green Lantern core movie. We will see if I'm right about him handling that. Very, very interesting. So we have got a very exciting future in DC live action. There's no question about that. I'm excited. I know some of you are excited. I know some of you are not excited. Listen, bringing in Snyder in the first place complicated matters. And it's always going to be a complicated matter, because no matter who comes in and runs this thing, there's going to be a corner of the fandom screaming for Snyder to return. Always. So DC and WB have to get it right now, because get it right and no one's going to give a shit what the Snyder people are saying with their propaganda and their spreading of lies, because if you're successful, nobody cares. If films are being made that the broader audience love, it really doesn't matter what those people in the back row are saying. So I'm convinced that Kevin Feige will be DC president by the end of 2022. Of course, this video is your receipt. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This has been the Movies TV Mad Daily. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back again in the next video. See you again soon.